Greetings, everybody! Welcome once more to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the past? Yes, we're heading back in time to learn all about Magic the Gathering, another one of its various product sets, releases, the cards that were in it. Would you be interested in those cards? What was new? What was reprints? All these types of things that make you interested in knowing the history of a really interesting and fun CCG, Magic the Gathering. I'm going to be your host and guide here, opening up the time portal, Tantis Naravan Dracovin. You just have to grab my hand. If you do, make sure you tip me a little bit. Make sure you subscribe over on YouTube. Make sure you leave a comment of your experience with M13. I was back into playing the game when this came out, so I collected some of it. I have some of it. It's the best I can say about it. All right, the time portal's open. Let's get going. Make sure to stay close. Once you getting caught in 2012. And never coming back, though. Paradoxes. Anyway, let's go. Welcome back. It's July 2012. It's time for us to learn about Magic the Gathering 2013 core set, otherwise known as M13, 2013, or Magic 2013, or M13. So this is indeed a core set. Its official release date was July 13th, 2012. Its symbol, of course, was the M13 symbol. Its lead designer was Doug Bayer. The lead developer was Zach Hill. Jeremy Jarvis continued with art direction, as he's been doing for quite a while in our videos here. It was a set of 249 cards that included 101 commons, 60 uncommons, 53 rares, 15 mythics, and of course 20 basic lands. Pretty basic set, if you will. So, there was, of course, the randomly inserted premium cards in the sets, aka foils of each of the sets. And, yeah, that's kind of the basics of the set itself, too. Looking at a booster box thing. The main returning mechanic that we want to talk about is we had a return of Exalted. Exalted was a mechanic that had showed up in the Alara block previously, and this was the first core set that kind of showed off it. And had it come back in a major way. Where if a creature attacks alone, it gets a bonus. Something else that's very also interesting about this, and I'm showing a card from Foundations. This is Giant Growth. Why am I showing this here? M13 was the first core set. Now that doesn't have cards from Alpha, but has 0 cards that have not appeared in every core set. Basically, after now, there might be reprints like Giant Growth from Alpha, but it's not going to be the same ones. Giant Spider was the last card in M12 that had been printed up till then in every set, every core set. It's no more. Not at all. This is also the first core set after Alpha to feature original art on some of its basic lands. Anyway, we'll kind of dive into that and the new land for M12. We'll kind of explain all of it. All right. So, now that we understand the basics, let's talk about the focus here. Because the focus was an interesting one. Good old Nicol Bolas was a focus here. The Angelic Benediction I didn't talk about. It's an Exalted. When a creature you control attacks, you may tap an attack creature. Sorry. I usually mention this thing. Giant Growth +3/+3. But Nicol Bolas, a reprint from the Alara block. The tick up for 3, destroy a non-creature permanent. Tick down, steal a creature for 2. Tick down 9, deal 7 damage. That player discards 7 cards, sacrifices 7 permanents. This Planeswalker is important here because of a number of reasons. First off, yes, it's a Planeswalker. It's the first multicolored card to be included in a core set. Yeah, that's a big thing. Not only is it a powerful Planeswalker, not only is a 6th Planeswalker, not only a cycle of normal colored Planeswalker, it is a multicolored Planeswalker and a multicolored card. This also is a set has a cycle of legendaries. That's also an incredibly interesting thing. This is only the second time up until now, the core set had legendary creatures. The last one before now had been 10th edition. A good example here is Yeva Nature's Herald here, a 4/4 flash for 4, that green creatures have flash that you could cast. Pretty decent if you're casting, want to speed in some things. The other thing here is we did have the Planeswalkers return, and for the cycle of Planeswalkers, 2 of them did get new art. A Johnny Goldmane here and Lana Vess. We'll talk about Lana a little better later, but we'll talk about a Johnny right now. He ticks up, Caller of the Pride ticks up to get +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, ticks down 3, target creature gain flying and double strike till end of turn, and ticks down 8 to put X 2/2 white creature tokens into the battlefield where X is your life total. A Johnny's pretty good in a life gain deck. If you get a lot of life, get him up there to 8, tick him down, at least 8, so we can tick him down to get a whole lot of cats for your life total. So I can see some good combos with that. But yes, so there's a new card for Johnny. Talk about Lana's once. The other thing that's very interesting here is Duel of the Planeswalkers, 2013. Why is this interesting? Because it is incorporating a lot of things in M 2013 from this game. This contained themes decks for each Planeswalker and legendary creature. This game here, and features those characters and it had Nicol Bolas as the final boss. Yeah, Nicol Bolas was the final boss of that game. Duels 2013, and had decks based on the Planeswalkers and legendaries. So they were pretty heavily connected together in a lot of ways. Due to the close prospective release dates, Duels 2013 was actually pushed as the introductory set. And while Magic 2013 was what showcased a lot of the higher elements. There's a little bit more to talk about with Duels here. We're going to get back to it. Not quite yet. Getting back to that. We will be revisiting this briefly. Now, interestingly enough, there isn't a deep and crazy story to this entire set. It's a core set. It's supposed to be basically kind of putting on a bunch of different planes. There's some Ravnica, Innistrad, Alara, the reunited one, and of course Chandalar that shows up in a lot of the things of turrets. Zathra Gorgon here is from Chandalar, the 3/6 death touch for 6 mana that for 2 colorless, a black, tapping it puts a petrification counter on a creature. It becomes a defender colorless artifact in addition to its other types, and its activated abilities can't be activated. This is a kind of interesting one. It puts a counter on something and shuts it down. So this is a fascinating one. The Xanthic Gorgon is kind of interesting. A little expensive, but I can kind of see interesting uses for it, for the use of it there. But yeah, so we're visiting a lot of stuff. We had a lot of cards that supplemented the various Planeswalkers, and this included to Nicol Bolas. Nicol Bolas, though, got a few extra, including the Gem of Becoming and 3 of his minions. While most of the Planeswalkers tend to get 1 spell, 1 creature, Nicol Bolas got 4 cards total. He's just swimming in cards. The Gem of Becoming here is 3 taps, sacrifice it, search your library for an island, a swamp, a mountain, reveal them and put them in your hand. Yeah, it's a 3 mana, 3 taps, sacrifice, get 3 lands, Nicol Bolas' colors. But yes, the story was then told from this in basically a combination of various sources. We'll talk about this through Audric here. Good old Audric. Effectively, Audric, there's a story about him. And these stories were released from June 27th, 2012, all up through August 15th, 2012. And it was a combination of 8 stories that kind of told everything from the angle of various characters. Like Audric being introduced here and having a card here, they tell a story about him. They tell a story about his interactions with stuff. So you learn about him in his time in Innistrad. A 3/4 first strike for 4 mana that whenever Audric and at least 3 other creatures attack, you choose which creatures block this combat and how those creatures block. Yeah, if you attack with enough creatures with Audric, oh, you don't block at all this turn. Or that guy blocks and blocks this creature over here, so they trade off and they die. The rest of my stuff swarms in and murders you. Because you choose which creatures block and how they do it. I like Odric. Odric's just a jerk that way. Let's talk about the products. What we were sold in. Of course, we had our 16-card booster packs. Boom! The classic that we have right now of 15 cards and our premium card in there. The art on it was Lana Vest, Ulan of the Dark Realms, Augur Bolas, Spike Baloth, Mindclaw Shaman, and a Johnny Caller of the Pride. They went for all 4 colors there. There, of course, was a 6-card pack. This 6-card booster showed Diabolic Revelations on it. There were 5 intro packs. Yes, intro packs, returning once more. We'll talk about them a little later. There was 2 event decks. Again, we'll talk about them. There was a booster battle pack. Just to kind of go into what they are, they're basically a version of a 2-player starter. The booster battle pack is, you know, a version of that. So it's an evolution of it. This one had 2 booster packs, a play guide, insert rules, and 2 20/70 randomized card decks. So yeah, so each player would get a semi-randomized card deck, and then also get a booster pack, and then you kind of played it with them, you know, there. They would get basically 5 lands of 2 colors and 5 spells for each of those colors. So it was a 2-color deck that each player was kind of playing with and supplementing with the booster pack to test it out. The Fat Pack returns. Hey, everybody loves the pack. And of course, the Deck Builders Toolkit once again makes a great return. It had 20 base. It was a 100-card pack with 20 basic land cards, 20 of each type, and then 85 fixed cards, 10 uncommons, 75 commons, and then 4 out of 10 strategies that they would suggest, with 6 uncommons, 5 uncommons, and then some booster packs of it. That's what you get in there. So, effectively, yeah, the semi-random was, I'll just kind of go over the list here. There was a blue-black evasion, humans, library, depletion, tokens, mid-range green, exalted, spirits, angels, vampires, zombies, red burn. So basically, out of all of those, when you bought a Deck Builder's Toolkit, you got 4 randomly. Again, these are all cards that are part of the main set. There are no new cards, no different printings of cards, no different art, but they just came in these versions of them that you kind of build into. A lot of the packaging, if you notice it, has the horns of Nicol Bolas on them. That was an important part of it. So what are these? These are promo boosters. They came with copies of Duels of the Planeswalker 2013. Yeah. Basically, you got a copy of it. You got a unique code that you could basically use on the official Wizard of the Coast Duels of the Planeswalker site to get one of these packs shipped to you. It was made available on June 19th, 2012, and remained until December 13th, 2012. And depending on the game system you got, depending on which of these you got. Basically, if you got the PlayStation version, you got a alternate art promo of Vampire Nocturus. We'll talk about it. If you got the Xbox version, you got Primordial Hydra, and Steam, you got Sarah Avatar. I'll show them all off. We're gonna get to them when we talk about promos. But these are packs of little packs of cards, 6-card promotional boosters that also include the alternate art card. Interesting little thing. The pre-release was on July 7th to 8th, 2012. Our card for the pre-release, Xanthid Gorgon here, which I already showed off. The launch party took place on July 13th to 15th, which is weird because basically it was both a launch party and not a launch party, because they basically were saying they weren't going to have launch parties anymore, but it kind of was. It was Staff of Nim, though, is the card that we had here. And the Staff of Nim, just because I haven't talked about it, of course, at beginning of upkeep, you draw an extra card, and you can tap it, do 1 damage to target creature. Play it. It's 6 mana, so it's kind of expensive, but does just, you know, give you an extra card every turn. There, of course, also was Game Day, which took place on August 4th to 5th of 2012. If you just went and participated in Game Day, you got a Muwamvuli Beast Tracker. I'm butchering the hell out of that one. A 2/1 human scout that enters, you search your library for a creature card with Death Touch, Hexproof, Reach, or Trample, reveal it, shuffle your library, put it on top. So you get a card, one of those things on it. And then, of course, if you did well at game day and got to top 8, you got a foil Magma Quake. Yeah, good old Magma Quake here, which deals X damage to each creature without flying and each Planewalker for X and 2 red. So it nukes everything on the ground and all the Planeswalkers on the board. There also was a new promo for the Core League, Core Set League participants. The Core Set League being basically just one of the league groups that was participating in the competitions. And what you got for participating in this is an alternate art Goblin token. So this is different than the Goblin token you would normally get in a set. There was a buy box promo also to finish up our discussions today with Cathedral of War. Enters tapped. The land has Exalted, so whenever a creature attacks alone, it gets +1/+1. You have to keep in mind every version of Exalted you have adds together. So if you have like 4 things with Exalted, something gets +4/+4 if it attacks of its own, and it just taps for colorless. Is it great? If you're doing an Exalted deck, kinda, maybe. It's fine an Exalted deck. Of course, as always, there's always a bonus 16th card, a token or an emblem. But we'll get to those in a second. I did want to show off the promos from the Duels of the Planeswalker. This is the version of Primordial Hydra you would get in it. It's a X for 2 green, X and 2 green. It comes into play with X +1/+1 counters. You double those +1/+1 counters at the beginning of your upkeep, and has trample as long as it's 10 or more. So you summon a big creature, it keeps getting bigger, and it's kind of mean. Then, of course, this is this special Sarah avatar that was part of the Duels of the Planeswalker promo packs. Has life talent toughness equal to your life total. If it goes in the graveyard, shuffle it out of its library. And then, of course, the last one, Vampire Nocturnus, which plays the top card of your library revealed. As long as that top card is black, the Vampire Nocturnus and other vampires you control get +2/+1 and have fly. So you have that top card revealed. If it's black, your creatures get bigger. Yeah, those are the 3 promos. Now we talk about the tokens. So this is an interesting thing that kind of happened from this set. This is the last time we got the tips and tricks cards. Not the last time. This is when they're discontinued. All those tips and tricks I talked about, where I wasn't finding any versions anymore, this is the point in time where they were discontinued. The 16 card just became a token or emblem. They're dead. Goodbye, tips and tricks. In this case, I'm showing off the 6/6 worm produced by Garruk Primal Hunter, but overall, for the tokens, there were 10 of them that were part of this here, because there was 10 different creatures that could create 10 different sources that could create tokens. The other thing, of course, there was one emblem, one for Lana of the Dark Realms. When we talk about her, I'll show that off then. All right, there were sample decks. So we've talked about sample decks a little bit before. But basically, sample decks, if you are interested, are basically 35 card decks that have basic lands, commons, and 4 uncommons. And these here, particularly, that were released during this time period, were from Magic 2013, with a little bit of Innistrad kind of sprinkled in there. But the entire idea behind these sample decks is that they would be given out at various events and stuff like that. If you would go to a big convention where Magic was at, part of the celebrations that were going on there, you could possibly get one of these sample decks while you were there. So it was a little bit of like, welcome, enjoy this deck that you can try out now. But yes. I've gotten some sample decks at some events, like going to PAX Unplugged and stuff like that in the past. So that's the kind of places you'd go to. A celebration that Magic is having, you'd go there, you'd be able to get into them. And they're now called welcome decks or welcome boosters as of 2016. But yes, these were the ones that were available. They're basically one of each color. Blue, black, red, green, white. I'm not going to go into details what's in them because, you know, they're some basic lands, commons and uncommons. All of them have either 12 or 13 lands. So when you're a 35 card deck, most of it's 30 card deck. I was talking about 35. They're 5 30-card decks. I'm saying 35. So, yeah, when you're at most 13 cards of land, get 17 cards, 4 of which are uncommon, there isn't a lot. They're a sample. Testing out. Fun little games you probably would have with an opponent. Anyway, let's talk about the cycles. There were 8 cycles here. 3 of which were 6-card cycles. The Planeswalker cycles. Why were they 6 cards? Because there's one for every color and a Nicol Bolas straight on top. Here's the new Liliana. Liliana of the Dark Realms. Isn't she nice? She's nice here. She's a pretty interesting one here and pretty powerful in certain ways. You tick her up to search your library for a swamp, reveal it, put it in your hand. It's not in play, you get in your hand still. Tick her down 3, target creature gets plus X or minus X, where X number of swamps you control. Boost up, shrink something. And the big thing is, her emblem that you get for -6 is swamps you control tap for 4 black mana. That's pretty good ramp. And it doesn't take her a lot to get to 6. Just saying, I do like Lana here in a lot of ways. Again, there were then 2 other Planeswalker-related cycles. Interestingly enough, for both of these cycles, Nicol Bolas has 2 cards. So technically, these are 7-card cycles, because Nicol Bolas gets 2, because he's a fancy dragon. Anyway, they're Planeswalker cards. These were each one named after them. So, Disciple of Bolas, Augur Bolas that I mentioned earlier. This one here is Gurk's Pack Leader. Whenever a creature of power 3 or greater enters the battlefield, you draw a card. There were then signature-based spells, hallmarks if you will, related to their personality and actions. Again, Nicol Bolas has 2, Gem of Becoming is one of them, but which we already talked about. But Jace has Mind Sculpt. Jace the Mind Sculptor. Target opponent puts a top 7 cards of his or her library, mills 7 cards. Used for 2 mana, target opponent mills 7 cards. Alright, now that we've gone through the Planeswalker ones, let's talk about the other remaining cycles. There were 4 color-based cycles, and the first one to talk about is the legendary ones. There were 5 legendary creatures. I've showed off Yevna and Odric, but here's Narfox, Overlord of Grixis, a flying exalted that whenever he attacks alone, defending player sacrifices a creature. Similarly, there were then cards that were related to those legendary creatures, named after them, that involves their names. This is one for Talrand. We'll talk about Talrand in a little bit. But Talrand's Invocation, for 4 mana, you get 2 blue flying Drake tokens in the battlefield. He creates Drakes. We'll talk about it. There was the Magic Rings of Chandelar. These were uncommon equipment that works best for a single color. Basically, they give creatures a something, in this case, the Ring of Kelowna. Again, these are related to Chandelar in various different regions of it. Give something trample? Okay, equip 1, give something trample, that's not bad. But, if it's a green creature you've equipped this ring to, at the beginning of your upkeep, you get +1/+1 counter on it. So basically, if you put these rings on something that matches its color, they get better, but it does give a benefit even if it's not of that color. There were the Sedge creatures. What do I mean by this? Well, these things harken back to some of the abilities of Sedge Troll back from Alpha. Basically, the troll that if you had it out and you also controlled a swamp, it basically got +1/+1 and then regenerated for a black. It was a red creature. These are uncommon creatures that basically have... It's different than Sedge Troll, but they basically get +1/+1 if you control a basic land of the appropriate allied color. In this case, Harbor Bandit. You're a black creature, you have a blue, you have an island, it gets +1/+1, and then it gets an ability that kind of matches that color. Remember, Sedge Troll got regeneration from black? Harbor Bandit gets, for a colorless and a blue, unblockable. So you can see, if you have an island, Harbor Bandit, all of a sudden, 3/3, then you can pay some mana to make him unblockable. Pretty neat that way, pretty good in certain ways. For uncommon, not bad. But that's basically all the Sedge creatures that were there. Then, of course, we have our favorite returning allied colored checklands. Bam, 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 bam. They're back. They've been reprinted since Magic 2010. This would be, of course, the 4th printing of them in a core set. These rare dual lands that come into play tapped unless you control a land with one of the appropriate types. So, Glacier Fortress, if you have an island or swamp, doesn't come into play tapped. Otherwise, yeah. And taps for blue, white. There were 2 mirrored pairs. The first one was Divine Favor and Dark Favor. These were common auras that basically enchant a creature with a mirrored bonus to the power and toughness. And they both were illustrated by Alan Williams. So the Divine Favor, you got free life when it entered, and your creature gets +1/+3. The Dark Favor, you lose a life when it enters, and your enchanted creature gets +3/+1. The other mirrored pair, of course, was Knight of Glory, Knight of Infamy. Uncommon human knights with a mana cost of a colorless and white or black, power toughness of 2/1, exalted, and protection from the opposite color. So Knight of Glory, protection from black. Knight of Infamy, protection from white. Mirrored pairs. Now, there were a bunch of functional reprints. I'm not going to get to all of them, because there was about 6 of them, and most of them are basically just creature reprints. It's another version of creatures. This is the one I want to talk about because it's a functional reprint that is pretty new. Basically, Krenko's Command is a functional reprint of Dragon Fodder. I guess they wanted to have you have a possible deck with 8 different instants, 8 different sorceries that summon 2 goblins for 2 mana. That's the only thing I can think about, because Dragon Fodder could just be a reprint. But I guess they wanted to make it a Krenko version of that. I don't know. It's an interesting one, too. Let's talk about some notable cards from the set. We've reached that time period. So, Thragtusk. This is one of 2 powerful creatures that had a lot of tournament play when they were first printed here in 2013. This is a 5/3, enters the battlefield, gain 5 life. When it leaves the battlefield, you get a 3/3 creature. The other big creature that was part of this kind of pair that was kind of used a bunch was the Thundermaw Hellkite, a flying haste for 5 mana that's a 5/5. When it enters the battlefield, it does 1 damage to each creature with flying your opponent's control, and you tap them. So it comes in, taps your opponent's flyers, and then flies into smack if they don't have anything with reach. Yeah, these were very interesting cards that just popped in here. We had Master of the Pearl Trident, which is technically a fixed version of Lord of Atlantis from the original set. Lord of Atlantis was a other merfolk have +1/+1 and Island Walk. This one says other merfolk creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Island Walk. So it does the same thing, but only for your creatures, not for everything. So it's just the automatically replacing Lord of Atlantis from Alpha, making it a little better for modern merfolk decks. Omniscience. This is when Omniscience was printed. Yeah, it's one of the most powerful enchantments in the game in and of itself, and enables so many combos. Omniscience is, for 10 mana, you get it out. And you can cheat it out in plenty of ways. You can cast non-land cards from your hand without paying their mana costs. I just play everything. I don't have to pay mana. Omniscience. I can't... If you don't understand the power of Omniscience, it's expensive. But again, cheating it out, figuring out some way to get it out. Yeah. Murder Most Foul. Yes. Murder was first printed here. So Murder, which has been reprinted a lot in many standard sets, was first done here. A classic card with many prints that will probably be the standard dual destroy target creature. I mean, it was in Foundations, it was in Duskmoor, it was Murders of Karloff Manor, it was in, Streets of New Capenna. I can name how many sets going back in time that Murder has been printed in. We found it. Let's talk about the other 2 legends we haven't talked about from the legend things, because these are both ones that would be seen in some competitive play and formats, and they're also some popular commanders for their color identity. Talrand here, good old Talrand, when you cast an instant sorcery, you get a Drake. A 2/2 Drake with flying. So basically, in an instant or sorcery deck, where you're able to, cost multiple copies, maybe get them back from your graveyard, recasting a lot of stuff, get a lot of Drakes. Another one being Krenko. Krenko, a 3/3 goblin that you tap, put X 1/1 goblins, where X number of goblins you control. Krenko taps to double your goblins. Krenko is great in a goblin deck. You can see why they have had some popularity as commanders. Whoop. That broke. That's weird. We should not have broken with Cranko. Why did you break with Cranko? That was weird. Let's go back to here. I love it when these break sometimes. Ah, cool. Perfect. Sometimes this breaks. Don't ask me why. Archaeomancer. Now, why am I talking about Archaeomancer? That's a very good question. Well, Aeromancer is heavily played in Pauper, because it can be combined to basically blink effects very easily. When it enters the battlefield, return instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. A lot of the various blink effects you'd be using in Pauper, blink this, get your instants or sorceries back, replay them. Wild Guest! Wild Guess is interesting because it's a new version of a card that we had, and it would be the new version of this type of card going forward. Basically, up until now, when you had a red card that allowed you to draw cards, you'd discard a card afterwards, many times at random. This is the first time that, in addition to casting this as a casting cost, you discard a card first. Then you draw your 2 cards. So it is basically doing a lot of its things, but in the opposite order. Normally it was draw, then discard. This is discard first, then draw. This is becoming a big part of how things are going to work for red going forward. From now on, when you are getting red card-based drawing, they traditionally are going to be discard first. Discard, then draw. You basically are getting rid of something from your hand and then getting something new. This is going to be the version of it. Now, we've mentioned him a few times. The Augur of Bolas. Yes, the Augur of Bolas saw a lot of play in Standard and Pauper, and I will tell you now, you're going to point out something here and like, this guy's uncommon. How is he playable in Pauper? He was printed in Common in a set. So, yeah, he was actually printed in Common in Modern Masters. Thanks, Modern Masters, for making this thing playable in Pauper. So he's a pretty powerful creature for a lot of spell-based aggro. When he enters the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library, reveal an instant or sorcery from among them, put in your hand, rest in the bottom of your library in any order. Yeah, basically you play him out. He's a 1/3 for 2 mana, and you just fish for a powerful instant or sorcery that you can quickly get out to combo into something there, to set something up out of your top 3 cards. Isn't a lot, but that can be powerful in a quick Standard game or, honestly, Pauper game. Now, there was one card that ended up banned for a bit from this set. Worldfire. Now, I will tell you, Worldfire was banned from Commander in 2012. Yeah. Basically, there was a bunch of reasons behind it back in that time. But yeah, it was banned in Commander the year it came out. Now, this has been unbanned since then when we get to 2021, because it's hard to set up. It's not really that great. It's not as much of a threat as it was back when it really came to it. It's exile all permanents, exile cards from hands and graveyard. Each player's life total becomes 1. It's 9 mana to basically exile everything and make everybody have 1 life. Kind of mean. Kind of mean. Just a little bit mean. Just a smidge mean. Now there's some other cards to talk about. Akroma's Memorial, a reprint. Creatures controlled flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, protect from black or red. I love Akroma's Memorial. It's a kind of mean, if you can play it out, just to boost your character with word soup. Your monsters with word soup. Arms Dealer. Hey, all those goblin tokens you're creating, you can sacrifice and do 2 damage to target creature. Unique creatures. I love Arms Dealer in a goblin-based deck. Battle of Wits, an alternate win condition. At the beginning of upkeep, if you have 200 or more cards, you win the game in your library. So, if you have a giant deck, just play Battle of Wits and win the game. the possibility of this happening is kind of silly, but I like it, though, too. Can't use it in Commander. Blood Reckoning. Interesting speaking, a defensive spell very similar to many white versions of ones, but this one is based on loss of life. Normally it's, you have to pay mana to attack, which is either blue or white. This one is when a creature attacks you or a planeswalker control, that creature's controller loses 1 life. To attack you, they have to give up life. It's a black defensive spell. Boundless Realms. It's 7 mana, but search your library for X basic lands, where X is the number of lands you control, and you get them in your battlefield tap. You double your lands. That can be fun. Landfall deck with Boundless Realms. Think about it. Chandra. Hey, she is a reprint, but I did want to talk about them. The tick up deals damage. Tick down, copy it. Tick down big one to deal 6 damage divided between targets. Chandra the 5-brand. Just want to mention her. Diabolic Revelations. We talked about this one in the 6-card booster just a little bit, but we didn't really dive into what it did. It's a X and then 3 colorless, 2 black. Basically X and 5 mana. Search your library for up to X cards, put them in your hand, shuffle your library. It's a tutor for X. It's expensive, but you can get a combo right away if you have enough mana. Cobalt Coffers, Rolana already maxed out. Disciple of Bolas. I can't forget the other Bolas creature that has his name. When it enters, sacrifice another creature. You gain X life, draw X cards, where X is that creature's power. You get a big old beefy creature, you play your Disciple, you sacrifice it, get a lot of life, get a lot of cards. Door to Nothingness. A reprint. Enters the tap. For 10 mana, 2 of each color, you sacrifice it and target player loses the game. I'm not going to say much more than that one. It's funny. Elder Scale Worm. A 7/7 trample. Which is... This one's an interesting one. When it enters the battlefield, your life total becomes 7. If it's less than 7. So basically, if you're lower than 7, it becomes 7. Otherwise, it stays the same if it's higher. As long as you have 7 or more life, damage that reduces your life total to less than 7 reduces to 7. So when you have Elder Scale in play, damage keeps your life at 7. But keep in mind, that's damage, not loss of life. Loss of life... Damage becomes loss of life. Loss of life is not damage. Always have to keep that in mind, Magic. And this just prevents damage. Faith's Reward. Return to the battlefield all permanents in your graveyard that were put in the battlefield this turn. You basically board wipe and bring back all your stuff. Well, you board wipe yourself for various reasons, not other opponents, and then bring everything back for various reasons. It's, you know, or just if all of your stuff died in a big old battle, you bring back, but it returns all permanents in your graveyard that are put there for the battlefield. So again, you bring back all your stuff if you board wipe it. Yeah. Garruk, again a reprint. Hey Garruk, Primal Hunter, nice to see you. Ticks up for a beast, ticks down to draw some cards amongst the greatest power. Put 6 green worm tokens to the battlefield for each land for ticking down big. Guild of Lotus, another reprint. Taps do 3 mana of any one color. Good old Ground Seal. Hey, still a reprint. Enters the battlefield, draw a card. Cards in graveyards can't be the target of spells or abilities. Shuts down any kind of graveyard-based decks. Camelback Goliath. I like this guy. He is a reprint, but I do like him. He's a 6/6, and whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you may put X +1/+1 counters where X is that creature's power. You start creating tokens or other creatures, and the Hailback Goliath just keeps getting bigger. Intrepid Hero. A tap to destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. A 1/1 for 3 mana. Smurfs bigger things. Jace Memory of Deck. Hi, Jace. Ticks up to draw a card, and a target player puts the top of it in the library in his or her graveyard. Basically, you draw a card and mill someone 1. Could be yourself, if it matters. For 0, you mill someone 10. And for -4, any number of target players each draw 20 cards. Rancor, a really good reprint. And by good, I mean I love it, and I think it's really neat. It's enchanted creature goes +2/+0 and trample. It's uncommon now, maybe you note. And when it's put in the graveyard from the battlefield, return it to your hand. You basically throw on the creature, make it a sacrificial, just throw it out there. Reliquary Tower, you have no max in hand size, tap for mana. Rewind, counter target spell, untap 4 lands. Rock's Faithmender, a 1/5 lifelink, and when you gain life, you gain double that life. Hey, Faithmender out in a life gaining deck, you're not doubling life gaining you get. Roaring Primadox. As being your upkeep, return a creature to its owner's hand. A creature you control. The thing about this one here is, if you are not doing a blink deck and doing a green deck that doesn't have blinking from artifacts or blue, you could basically use this to have come into play effects, especially for cheap creatures that have, 1 or 2 mana drops that have very decent come into play effects. Combined with this, you keep bouncing it to your hand and replaying it. Sounds of Delirium. X. Tap it. Mill someone X. Sarah's Avenger, where you can't cast it as your first, second, or third turn of the game. A flying vigilance 3/3 for 2 mana. Shimmy Inspector, a flying 2/2. When it deals combat damage to a player, reveal their hand, and you choose a non-land card from it, and search that player's graveyard, hand, and library for all cards the same name and exile them. Not as great in Commander. Still, you get rid of a card. Basically, because but anyway, better in like Modern or Legacy and something like that. Silklash Spider, the 2/7 reach that for X and 2 green deals X damage to target each creature with flying. Basically, the spider that nukes flying. Spell Twine. Exile instant sorcery from your graveyard and an instant sorcery from an opponent's graveyard. Cast those cards, or copy those cards. Cast those copies without paying their mana costs if able, and then exile Spell Twine. Yeah, you get rid of 2 instant sorceries from 2 different graveyards, including your own, then get to copy them without paying its mana cost. Stuffy Doll. You choose a player when it enters the battlefield. It's indestructible. And when it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to the chosen player. Basically, it keeps getting hit, it rebounds that damage, and it can deal damage to itself. Sublime Angel, or Archangel, the flying exalted. Other creatures you control have exalted. Yeah. And, read the little thing there at the bottom. If a creature has multiple instances exalted, each triggers separately. So if you're playing an exalted deck with a Sublime Archangel, or let's say like a modern exalted deck, 4 Sublime Archangels, they all trigger exalted 4 times, and basically have 5 exalted, so now you attack with 1 creature, it gets +20/+20. And that's if you just have them and no other creatures. It can be crazy. Or just blue, white, and copy the crap out of it. Trading Post! Woo! It's fun because it's wacky shenanigans. For 1 and tap, you can discard a card to gain 4 life. You can pay 1 life to get a goat. You can sacrifice a creature to return an artifact to your hand. You can sacrifice an artifact and draw a card. So many things. Basically, you trade one thing. You can trade a card from your hand for life, trade life for a creature, trade creature for an artifact, trade an artifact for a card. Alright, let's talk about some of the various changes that happened to this set, just to kind of get an idea about this. So this is one of those big things that we first had introduced in this set. Turn to Slag. Why is this important? Where it does 5 damage to target creature and destroy all equipment attached to that creature. This is the first core set that specifically destroys an equipment. Other big things that were not here, Cycle of Titans disappeared. We do have the rings that talk about the Chandelar rings, but the Lucky Charms, either the original or the later, newer cycle, gone. Also, because of an upcoming set that's going to be multiplayer focused, Return to Ravnica block, I should say, Hoser spells that are multicolored based Hoser spells disappear. And we finally said bye, Giant Swipe. Those are major things too. There were a bunch of, again, returning cards, new cards, all the normal things, changes. The other thing that I just want to mention is there were some changes to rarity. A lot of things became more rare, like Chroma's Memorial became mythic and things like that. This one, Fire Elemental, it finally became common. The original printing from Alpha, we got it printed again here. It's now common. Sorry, Fire Elemental, you were uncommon up until 7th edition. Now you are finally common. You just dropped down there. And a bunch of other cards either dropped or came up in mythicness, various things. And there was a lot of better and worse cards, of course, as there usually is for these core sets. Let's talk intro packs. The Path to Victory is a blue-white deck. Yes, this is a multicolored deck. Interestingly enough, it's mainly white, though, because its 2 rares are white. We have Odric, we talked about, but we also have good old Captain of the Watch, a Vigilance 3/3 that other soldier creatures you control get +1/+1 in Vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, you get 3 soldiers. Why would I also have blue in here? I don't know, maybe to, like, bounce something in and out of existence to flicker it. Possibly do that. The Captain to get more soldier tokens that are getting boosts. Just saying, there's some good reason behind it. Basically, there's a primary color, and a secondary color for all of these sets. So keep that in mind when we talk about them. Depths of Power. Blue-red. We're not just doing ally colors, we're also doing some enemy colors here. So, yes, we're focusing here on Tauren, Sky Summoner, good old Tauren, talked about them, and Stormtime Leviathan. The rares are all of the primary color. 8/8 Island Walk, lands are islands to other types, and then creatures with flying or Island Walk can't attack. Hey, put our good friend that we talked about in this deck, the Master of Pearl Trident. Just saying, everything's an island. Maybe get some more merfolk in there. But Talon's a merfolk too. Soul Domination, and spelled S-O-L-E. Exalted. Basically, yeah. Soldiers, tokens, blue-red shenanigans. Exalted, white-black. Yeah, it's a white-black deck. We got Narfox here, who's our good old friend. But we also got the Xanthar Gorgon. We've talked about both of them. But, yeah, these are the two ones that are in this intro. Mob Rule. A red-green. Goblins. Token Swarm. You name it. Yeah, it's what we're focusing on here. And, of course, other than Krenko, have you noticed all the legends are in the intro packs? Yeah, they are. Fervor. Creatures you control have haste. Basically, each of the legends is in each of the intro packs. And, of course, then, Wild Rush. A black-green. Yeah, we're black-green over here, interestingly enough. We, of course, have good old Yevna. But we also have Predatory Rampage, where creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn, and each creature your opponent controls blocks this turn if able. So boost all of your creatures and forces your opponent to block. You want to murder all your opponent's creatures. You're not necessarily going for the kill. You're going for the throat rip apart. Let's talk about the event decks. So there were, of course, the two event decks. The first one was Repeat Performance. There's a green-white event deck that focused on creatures. It's a creature deck. So, yeah, I mean, like many of the event decks, they, of course, had 7 rares. In this case, there were 6 different rares, as there were 2 Razorverge Thickets. So, 2 of the land from the Innistrad, or Scars of Mirrodin. Blade Splicer being from New Phyrexia, Geist-Honored Monk from the Innistrad block, Sunblast Angel there. Really, Thragtusk is the only thing from M13 here. But you also have things like Green Sun's Zenith. It's a pretty good green-white creature deck. And that's the standard I have to say about it. You see all the creatures there, and you kind of say, oh, yeah, that's pretty good. Our other event deck was a tricolor deck. A blue-red-black that focused on Flashback and your graveyard. Yes, we're bringing in Flashback, which really wasn't in M13, but it's an event deck for M13, and it matches Nicol Bolas' colors. So maybe throw Nicol Bolas in there just for fun. Hi. Maybe throw, Talorand in there, or Nicol Bolas or something there. Anyway, in this case, it wasn't the land, Darkest Shores, that we had 2 of. It was 2 Slag Storms, the last one on here. But again, interestingly enough, there wasn't a lot here from M13. Firewing Phoenix really is the only one, the flying 4/2, that for 4 mana, you get it back from your graveyard to your hand. The rest of these things are reprints from other sets, as per usual for many of these event decks. But there you go! There's M13! Yes, it's a very interesting set, as it has made a couple of subtle changes. I think that's the thing that we have in this core set, subtle changes. It's a core set with multicolor. It's a core set that has legendaries again. It's a core set that we don't have the rules. It's a core set that we're introducing little things, little changes, little grunts. There are some spells here that I've mentioned that certainly I can point out. Omniscience, which has had an effect. Others have had various effects and everything. Murder being reprinted so many times. The fact is, there are many little things here it's not one big thing that makes M13 unique. It's a lot of the little things that makes M13 very interesting and unique, and makes it have a lot of this little bits and pieces about it that make it a very unique, interesting set to talk about. And I hope you enjoyed coming with me, diving deep, and learning all about it, and seeing, hey, where these cards came from, and maybe if I want to play with some of these cards I didn't know about. Certainly speaking, looking back over them, I can remember some decks and stuff I built at the time that play around with these cards, and they were fun. And we'll leave that there. Thank you for joining today. Please check out all the rest of my stuff. I do, of course, stream all my tabletop stuff and some gaming and stuff with friends and chatting and stuff over on Twitch. I do streaming. You can always join me there. But if you can't, just check out all my stuff over on YouTube. That's where all my tabletop stuff is uploaded. Make sure to check out that stuff like this here. Of course, make sure to give support over there. Making sure you're subscribed. Making sure, let me know in the comments, do you have M13? And what do you think of some of these cards? And of course, check out my social media for updates on schedules and stuff like that. Anyway, I'm gonna get going. Until next time we dive back into history, or maybe talk about something else related to tabletop, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful. Very well.